Winter has definitely arrived in the Netherlands. It's become so wet and cold, and our visits to Ce Tuin have really lessened in the last couple of weeks. We got most of the garden winter ready in the previous month, but there are still a few things we need to do during this quiet season. I bought a new bird feeder to replace the glass one that we accidentally broke in the summer. And before moving to Europe, I didn't realize how popular it was to feed birds during the winter, since feeding Australian birds is actively discouraged in all seasons. But feeding birds here is something I've fully embraced. Apart from the birds, I've noticed a lot of other critter activity around Ce Tuin. We have some roving mice in the shed, some parsnip-loving voles who I've been fighting with all year, a bird that is just loving playing with all the straw on the garlic bed, and a rat the size of a chihuahua that's made a sizable tunnel into our greenhouse just to eat the mouldy cacao beans on the old jute sacks. There really isn't much to show you around the garden that's changed substantially since November, so I didn't really see a point doing a full tour for December. This is quite normal for the winter season, and I don't mind the break. It gives me plenty of time to do some maintenance on tools, like this saw that I accidentally left out for a week in the rain. And the shed could also do with the deep clean, especially since the mice seem to have moved in recently. This was my first year growing parsnips. I planted them in around March or April after pre-sprouting the seeds in a Ziploc bag. They were quite easy to grow, though my biggest issue was my continuous battle with the voles. Since we've had a few hard frosts, I thought it was time to pull them out and see how big they had gotten. Pulling out root vegetables is pretty up there in harvesting satisfaction, and it's especially satisfying in the winter months when harvesting is at an all-time low. Some were quite hard to get out and required a lot of digging around the root and wiggling it in place to loosen it up. I cut around about 15 minutes of digging around the parsnips and struggle pulls, so now it's a quick, satisfying compilation of all the successful parsnip pulls. This parsnip ended up being the longest parsnip of the day. And this was a reenactment because I forgot to press record on the first real pull. This was probably the easiest pull of the day. And this was the widest parsnip we pulled out. In terms of weight, it ended up being the heaviest. We did come across some vole casualties. We found about 3 hollowed out parsnips. It was a bit Looney Tunes-esque pulling out a top and then seeing a hollowed out cavity underneath. But we're not too mad about it because we ended up getting a decent amount, about 15 parsnips in all. They were all quite decently sized, and all of them were really satisfying to pull out of the ground. We already have a few recipes in mind, including a soup and some roasted parsnips for a Sunday roast. After we harvested them all, I scrubbed them off with a dish brush in a bucket of rainwater because I didn't really want to deal with a muddy kitchen. It was pretty cool to see how white they were under all the sand and mud, and of course it was satisfying again to have cleaner parsnips to bring home. As well as the parsnips, I got a handful of endive. That's quite a popular vegetable here to add to mashed potatoes. And I also got some kaleets, which is something new I've grown this year as well. Hope you enjoyed this short and sweet video of our Dutch allotment. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and see you in 2024. Bye!